Alright, first, what is WP's campaign slogan for the coming GE? We have chosen the following slogan: Vote Workers' Party towards a First World Parliament. Or in Mandarin, 把票投给工人党，迈向第世界国会. Why have we chosen this slogan? We think it's important in this 46th year of our nation's independence to reflect on where we have come as a nation. And while, of course, Singaporeans can take pride in the advancements we have made in infrastructure and economic development, we should also ask a very fundamental question about what is the state of our governance in Singapore at this time. Our organs of state, government, parliament and judiciary, in what state of health are they? Are they functioning properly as checks on each other? Parliament in particular is of concern to us because, as you know, the current composition of Parliament, in terms of elected MPs, consists of 82 from the PAP and 2 from opposition. Is this a healthy state of affairs? If Parliament is supposed to perform its function as a robust check on the executive government, can this happen with 82 to 2 in favour of the ruling party? Is there a danger that Parliament will become a rubber stamp of the government agenda in the future if we are not careful? Now, no government is perfect or infallible or lasts forever, and we believe very strongly that it's in the national interest to restore Parliament's role as a robust check to keep the government accountable. And it is our view that the ruling party's MPs cannot fully do this, as they have to support the government agenda when voting comes. Now, to explain a little bit more about this concept of First World Government, what are the characteristics that we see the First World Government, or First World Parliament having? And there are 4 main characteristics of a First World Parliament. First, we believe that a First World Parliament should only consist of MPs elected in free and fair elections, all having similar voting rights due to the mandate they received from the people. Second, the First World Parliament will function as a robust check and balance against the government. And in order for them to function as a robust check, there must be a critical mass of elected MPs from other parties besides the ruling party. Third, the opposition as well in a First World Parliament is responsible for defending the national interest. The opposition in Parliament must protect the people and ensure that the government does not take steps that will hurt the people through legislation or other policies. Fourth, it is a Parliament which respects the Constitution and respects people's constitutional rights. What are the benefits of a First World Parliament to Singaporeans? Again, we'd like to highlight 4 points that we see as benefits of a First World Parliament to Singaporeans. First, a First World Parliament will ensure that there's a thorough examination of policies in the highest forum, and this examination takes place open to public scrutiny. This, we believe, will make the ruling party very much more careful when they want to implement policies, especially unpopular policies. Second benefit of a First World Parliament: it will keep the ruling party on its toes through pressure of elected opposition members being present there. And again, they would have to think very carefully about pushing through harsh policies or pay a high political price. Third benefit of a First World Parliament: that it builds insurance against ruling party decline. It enables other parties to build expertise in policy as well as in municipal governance, and it will assist in building an insurance for the Singapore people towards failure of the ruling party in the future. Fourth benefit of First World Parliament: it will ensure better representation of more diverse interests. And in this, I'm highly encouraged by some letters recently in the forum page of Straits Times, which shows that Singaporeans do understand the need for more diverse representation through other parties besides the ruling party. Next, I'd like to just give a brief overview of the manifesto before I call upon various panelists to highlight certain chapters. Now, this manifesto, which we are going to release today, it will update our policy ideas since 2006. And it covers 15 areas of public policy. But overarching all these areas are our fundamental and underlying philosophy of governance. And we still believe what we've believed for many, many years in the values of diversity, respect, human dignity, tolerance, and equal responsibility. In addition to a description of the First World Parliament, we also describe here how we believe society can be made more robust and yet more humane. And you will hear from the panelists individually how these values will be upheld in various public policy areas. Now, to start off the individual presentations, I'd first like to call upon Pritam Singh. He will present to us highlights from our chapters on governance and civil liberties, justice, law and order, and arts, media, information and new technology. Pritam.
Now, firstly, governance and civil liberties. The political changes made in 2009-2010 to increase the number of NCMPs in Parliament while retaining the GRC system and the gerrymandering of political boundaries is not the answer towards a robust democracy. Increasing the number of single-member constituencies from 9 to 12 still leaves 86% of the constituencies under the GRC system. Having a cooling-off day, in the opinion of the Workers' Party, is an insult to Singaporean voters, as similar arrangements have also been shown to be susceptible to abuse by incumbents in other countries. The Public Order Act 2009 gives our law enforcement agencies such wide discretionary powers that it further erodes the constitutional rights of citizens to freedom of expression and assembly. Of particular concern are three things: public assembly, the move-on order, and the restriction of filming of law enforcement activities. Under the public assembly provision, even one person acting alone is now classified as an assembly. The move-on order gives the police a new power to order that individual to leave a place for up to 24 hours, while the restriction on filming allows them to stop one from filming law enforcement activities, including crowd control, criminal investigation, or other routine matters, so long as the police deem it necessary to do so. Quite simply, the POA operates to prevent Singaporeans from holding the government to account, and the WP recommends that some provisions of the POA be repealed. I will now move on to the second chapter, Justice, Law and Order. Singapore's legal and judicial system may be well ranked on efficiency, corruption indices, and caliber of staff. However, these do not adequately measure the important aspects where the system still needs to improve, such as in the areas of due process, balancing the interests of stakeholders, and having sufficient accountability for executive actions. The Workers' Party believes that mandatory sentences for capital offences should be removed, as they take away the discretion of the judge to adjust the sentence to suit individual case circumstances. Under the current system of mandatory sentences, the real power to determine the offender's sentence shifts from the courts to the prosecution, who will decide which charge to proceed on to produce an appropriate sentence. For capital offences, discretion should be given to judges to decide whether the death penalty or a lesser penalty is justified in each case.
Strong population controls were put in place in the 1970s. These caused the birth rate to plummet to replacement level by as early as 1975. Yet it was not until the mid-1980s that the government made an about turn on its birth control policies. This has contributed to our current low birth rate and aging population problems. To mitigate this, the government liberalized immigration and foreign worker policies, growing the population by more than 1 million in just the past 10 years. This huge influx of new arrivals has contributed to overcrowding in our public transport system and in our hospitals, just to name a few. The Workers' Party is not an anti-immigrant party. we welcome immigrants who contribute to the economic vibrancy and diversity of our nation. However, we believe that the rate of immigration should not exceed the capacity of the country's infrastructure and the comfort level of our local population. The overall rate of immigration should be moderated to allow for the nation's infrastructure development to catch up with the huge population increase in the past decades. To increase our local fertility rate, we need to lower workplace and career impediments to childbearing and child-rearing. Material incentives are not enough to encourage Singaporeans to have more children. A sense of nationhood and belonging, a vision and a hope for the future, and a less stressful schooling and working environment are essential to encouraging procreation. This might also stem the flow of Singaporeans emigrating. There should be increased support and stronger incentives for employers to implement better work-life balance practices and flexi-work arrangements. The civil service should set the example for the private sector to follow. To recognize the important role of fathers in sharing the responsibilities of infant care, paternity leave of at least 6 days, half of which will be funded by the government, should be introduced and legislated.
Let me now highlight a couple of proposals on healthcare. To help cover acute hospital bills, the Workers' Party proposes a compulsory basic hospitalization scheme with co-payment of the premium from the government. The scheme should aim to achieve some key objectives such as universal coverage for all basic hospital healthcare, a standard premium regardless of age, and affordable premium for up to the 90th percentile of the working population. For more information on this scheme, please refer to our manifesto. We also recommend that patients be allowed to receive subsidized rate at specialist clinics in public hospital, even if they are not referred by polyclinic. Next, I want to touch on step-down care. The cost of step-down care in Singapore is too high for the average family. Some Singaporeans have to leave their sick elderly family member in long-term care institutions in neighbouring countries because of cost reasons. Although the long-term care services are provided largely by VWOs and commercial operators, the government must play its role to monitor them and provide support and intervention. This is to ensure long-term care services in Singapore are readily available, of good quality and affordable. We believe there should be sufficient institutional care facilities such as convalescent homes, community hospital, rehabilitation center, hospices to cater to the different needs of patients. These are some of our proposals. One, as indicated in our 2006 manifesto, the Workers' Party continues to believe that resident committees, RCs, and the Citizens Consultative Committees, CCC, should be abolished to allow for the organic growth of community leaders and development of community living. Two, similarly, the Workers' Party firmly believes in the abolishment of the Group Representation Constituency or GRC and the need to revert to single constituency based on geographical areas to promote community identity. And finally, for this chapter, the Workers' Party proposes to increase the number of community mediation centres, or known as CMC, and promote it as a place to settle community disputes if individual efforts fail. In line with its work to help build bridges to reconciliation, the centre should also promote and educate the public on the harmony of community living.
Given the fact that public transport is a basic necessity of modern life, serving public interest should be paramount and not profits. The PAP government has failed to ensure that the capacity of Singapore's public transport infrastructure has kept pace with the sharp population increase in the past decade. This has resulted in overcrowding of our trains and buses, and particularly in the last 5 years. Commuters often have to endure extremely crowded MRT trains, station platforms, and buses. The Workers' Party is of the view that public transport should be provided as a public good and not for profit. Public transport costs must be kept affordable for all Singaporeans, especially the low-income earners who spend a large portion of their income on transport. Now, I will mention three highlighted proposals by the Workers' Party. Firstly, the Public Transport Council should be dissolved. All public transport, including the MRT and public buses, servicing major routes, should be brought under the National Transport Corporation to ensure smooth integration of the overall national transport network and to avoid unnecessary duplication of services and overheads incurred by multiple operators. Secondly, concession passes on public transport for the elderly should be extended to all operating hours. There should be more generous concessions given to the disabled. And this should be funded by the government in line with the best practices of other developed countries.
As far as labour policy is concerned, WP has a couple of concerns. I'll just highlight a few. This concern is about low-wage workers and how the low-wage workers are going to cope with the cost of living and inflation. Secondly, of course, we are concerned about the foreign manpower policy in Singapore, especially vis-a-vis opportunity for Singaporeans to pursue meaningful career paths, and also vis-a-vis the productivity push that we are all working on. The third concern I'd like to highlight is about older workers. And recent policy changes have seen the CPF drawdown age being delayed from 62 to 65 years. But the corresponding re-employment obligations that were passed in January this year are, in our opinion, quite weak. They still expose our older workers to the risk of shabby treatment and possible unemployment between 62 to 65 years. So, in light of these concerns, we have certain beliefs and proposals. First, with regard to the low-wage workers and income deprived, we believe that more assistance should be given to the low-wage workers. Now, we do support WIS, the Workfare Income Supplement Scheme, but we advocate that WIS should be improved for better support of our low-wage workers in a few areas. First, to have more regular payouts under WIS. Secondly, a higher cash component to be given out under WIS, even for self-employed. And third, the quantum of WIS should be benchmarked to the cost of living. With regard to older workers, we are concerned about the delay in CPF drawdown without a corresponding security of re-employment. So the question is, how do we cut this gap? So for these four concerns, WP's beliefs and proposals, I will highlight a few. First, with regard to retirement adequacy, it has always been our principle that CPF rates should not be tinted red during economic cycles. We should fix the rate and not adjust it as a cost-cutting tool. Secondly, we recommend that there be periodic dividends given to CPF members from government investment gains. As I mentioned earlier, since the government uses CPF funds to invest for higher returns, we feel that it's fair that periodically the government do declare dividends based on these investment gains back to CPF accounts. Third point, for CPF Life, since it's a compulsory annuity scheme, we believe that it is right that the government should underwrite its solvency to protect CPF members. So, it's very important, I think, that we should never link the drawdown age for CPF money to any retirement age or re-employment age because of the weak employment outlook. We cannot be certain that these older workers will be employment, whether we have a retirement age or a certain age or re-employment age. And we advocate that members should be allowed to draw down their CPF monies from age 60 onwards. Last point, we also would like to recommend that for Singaporeans who have encountered dire financial difficulties at a certain point in their lives, that there should be some provision for them to draw a limited amount of funds from their own CPF balances to tide them over this period. Now, of course, we should set strict conditions so that the funds are not depleted, and we believe that this is something that should be considered seriously. Alright, thank you very much. That's my view for labour and CPF. Okay, so I think now we will be open to taking any questions or comments.